The moment I stepped through the doors of the jewelry store, something shifted in me. It wasn't the hum of polished floors under my heels or the delicate chime of the bell above me, it was the stillness. The quiet that only places like this have, wrapped in soft music and colder air. It smelled faintly of orchids and money. That old kind of money that speaks in whispers, not in bills. It had been years. Years since I allowed myself to even look through windows like this, let alone walk inside. I told myself this was just a visit. But deep down, I knew this was about more than diamonds. 44 years old. Caregiver. Peacekeeper. I wasn't born with a voice, they handed me a mop and told me it was my turn to be grateful. Every time someone dropped a mess, I was there. I was the fixer, the silent partner in a family business where my name never made it to the paperwork. Only my money did. I'd never bought anything like this. Not even close. Not for birthdays, not for anniversaries I barely remembered to celebrate. Never for myself. And today, I wasn't here to fix anyone's mess. I was here to make a statement. The jewelry sat behind glass, platinum band, rare-cut diamonds, nothing loud. No oversized centerpieces or gaudy sparkles. It was restraint turned into art. Deliberate. Strong. I didn't want something that shouted. I wanted something that stayed. Something that wouldn't apologize for taking up space. That set reminded me of myself, weathered, quiet, but unbreakable. I stared at it for too long. Long enough to begin that spiral. Is this too much? Am I being ridiculous? Do women like me even get to wear things like this? But then another thought nudged through, every woman deserves to wear something that says, I am seen. I remembered birthdays no one noticed. Years where I was the one organizing, cooking, and cleaning while others laughed and left early. I remembered the gift cards I gave, the ones I never got back. This wasn't about diamonds. This was about telling myself I mattered. I told the assistant, a young man with perfect posture and kind eyes, I'd like to see that one up close. Just as he reached to unlock the case, the door opened behind me. Tamsin? A voice too familiar, too sharp. I didn't turn. I didn't need to. My sister, Greer Winterbourne, never entered a room quietly. Even her silence came with judgment. She walked straight to me. Didn't greet. Didn't ask. Just glanced at the price tag like she was scanning a headline. Oh, she said, loud enough for the assistant, and probably half the store, to hear. Don't tell me you're using family money again. The air around me thinned. Family money? I hadn't asked for a dime in years. Every check I'd written for her son's tuition, every payment I'd made to keep Mom's mortgage from defaulting, I never labeled it. Never asked for thanks. Just handled it. Quietly. Like always. It's my money, I said. But my voice cracked. And that was enough. The assistant's gaze hesitated. His fingers froze above the lock. Other customers, those who hadn't looked my way yet, now did. Greer tilted her head, victorious in her insinuation. That was always her way. Never outright lies. Just enough poison in the air for people to question what they knew. I couldn't breathe. Not from the embarrassment, but from the years of this. Of being the good one. The dependable one. The one who swallowed the insult, smiled, and kept helping. I stood still, chest tight, while the assistant resumed his motion, pretending nothing happened. In my head, I saw it all. The years I covered her mistakes. Paid off hospital bills for an aunt who never even called me on my birthday. helped a cousin through rehab, covered debts that weren't mine because it's family. And now, when I finally did something for me, this was what I got. I clenched my jaw. Being quiet doesn't mean I'm weak. I nodded to the assistant. I'll take it. My hand didn't tremble when I swiped the card. No shared accounts. No transfers. Just mine. Greer narrowed her eyes. She knew. This wasn't about jewelry. This was about me choosing myself, for once. The box was small. Light. But holding it, something inside me shifted. I wasn't sure what it was, freedom, maybe. Or the first step toward it. Outside, the sun was still strong. My heels tapped against the pavement with a rhythm that felt new. Like the sound of someone who'd stopped asking for permission. I passed the store window and caught a glimpse of movement behind me. A reflection. Quick. Familiar? I turned, but the sidewalk was empty. My phone buzzed. Unknown number. I answered, expecting a thank you from the store or a receipt confirmation. Ma'am, the voice said, clipped and low. We need to confirm something strange about your transaction. My breath caught. The man on the phone sounded polite, but there was an edge in his voice. Like he was trying to keep calm while something wasn't adding up. Miss Falconer, we had a request earlier today. Someone attempted to cancel your transaction. They claimed to be a family member. Said the purchase was made by mistake. I stood still on the sidewalk, the noise of the street suddenly muted by the blood rushing in my ears. What? I said, almost whispering. There were inconsistencies in the contact details. Your name's on the account, yes, but someone accessed it using a different phone number. Same last name. The request was urgent, said it was fraud. I didn't need to hear more. Greer. Of course it was her. No one else would have known I was at that store today. No one else had enough arrogance to think they still had authority over me, or my money. I didn't authorize any cancellations, I said, carefully measured. And I certainly didn't send anyone to speak for me. There was a pause. Understood. We've flagged it. The transaction went through properly, no funds were pulled back. But I thought you should know. He hung up after apologizing for the confusion. I stood there for a beat longer, phone still in hand, heart pounding harder than it should over a bracelet and a ring. It wasn't about the jewelry. It was about control. About how far someone would go to remind me who they thought I still was. Driving home, I didn't turn the radio on. My mind was too loud. I kept thinking about all the little ways things had been handled for me over the years. Like when Dad quietly removed my signature rights from the family fund, saying it was to keep things simple. Or when Greer would forward me receipts with double the usual amount, claiming inflation, while she sipped wine in Lake Tahoe. I let it happen. Every time. I chalked it up to poor communication, not manipulation. But now it was clear. This wasn't sloppiness. It was planned, layered so neatly into the fabric of our family I didn't see it unraveling until the threads tugged loose on their own. The first time someone crosses the line, you call it a mistake. The 10th time, it's a strategy. The porch light was on when I pulled into the driveway. Mom sat in the rocking chair, a blanket around her legs, sipping sweet tea like she hadn't just raised two daughters who'd learned to smile while cutting each other down. You were out late, she said. Had some errands in town. I didn't elaborate. She nodded, eyes watching me more than my words. Greer stopped by. She seemed tense. Said she saw you today. I stayed quiet. She didn't say much. Just said you were doing something impulsive again. Again. As if every time I stood up, it was a lapse in judgment. I forced a half smile. Nothing important. She didn't push. She never did. That was part of the problem. Inside, the jewelry box sat untouched on the hallway table. I picked it up like it might bite. Why did it feel like I'd done something wrong by finally choosing myself? That night, I couldn't sleep. My mind kept circling back to that dinner 4 years ago, the one they called a family meeting but didn't tell me was happening until I walked in and found them already seated. Greer had papers in front of her. Michael, our cousin, had a spreadsheet on his laptop. We've been thinking, she said, smiling like she wasn't about to rearrange my life. The way we manage the family finances, it needs more structure. That structure meant I got less say. Less visibility. But still full responsibility. I remember sitting there, nodding, convincing myself it wasn't a betrayal. Just practicality. They made me feel like the child who needed a lesson in money management when I was the one keeping the whole thing from collapsing. And now, years later, they were still at it. This call wasn't random. It was a gentle correction. A tap on the shoulder to remind me, stay in line. I didn't confront Greer the next morning. I wanted to. I even drafted a message, then deleted it. Instead, I logged into my bank accounts. Checked every transaction. Every login. There it was. A sign-in from an IP address in another state, Greer's husband's company server. I requested all access logs. Changed my passwords. Set alerts. Then I checked the family trust account. Nothing obviously wrong. But something had changed. I could feel it, like when you know someone's moved something on your desk even if everything looks the same. Trust doesn't shatter with a crash. It dies in silence. One unauthorized login. One canceled payment. One whispered phone call at a time. I hid the jewelry box in the back of the closet, behind a stack of old tax files. Not because I was ashamed. Because it needed to be safe. I poured myself a cup of tea, sat in the dark, phone resting on the armrest. They wanted to play quiet games. So be it. But I wasn't the same woman anymore. It started quietly. In the car on the way to a client meeting, my chest felt heavier than usual. I kept replaying last week's bill payment and the surprise fund transfer. I thought, if this were random, it would sting once and be done. But the sting kept returning. Years of subtle cuts, dismissive comments, tossed aside emails, the way my ideas were half listened and half noticed. I recalled when I packed up the tax documents and Greer told me I was overthinking things as always. She didn't know I'd drafted the agenda for the gala's next 5 years. But I did. And they didn't. It clicked. We weren't a family running a business. We were one person's stage and I was the understudy who couldn't leave. Every time I blinked, someone shifted the spotlight. And I, always polite, blinked again. Until now. When I sat at my desk later that evening, the tiny ledger I kept popped up in my mind. I called it Receipt Archive. The car loan for Greer's boy? I co-signed. I financed it. A year later they wrapped that car into collateral for a new line of business. I saw the auto dial-out number in the bank record, watched the loan flip while they said, "Oh, you must have forgotten the clause." I didn't forget. I stayed quiet. But now quiet felt like sabotage. I remembered thinking at the time, I'm doing this for the family. I'm doing this so no one asks why I'm the one footing the bill again. They made me feel like a child needing guidance when I was the one keeping them afloat. I decided to experiment. At home the next day I placed the jewelry box, my set, on the kitchen counter. As predicted, Greer walked in, saw it, paused too long. "That's quite the splurge," she said, tone tight. "Mom's been worried about how you've been spending lately." I didn't raise my voice. I let the box sit between us. Funny. She never said that to me. Silence stretched. She hated that I didn't fold. She recoiled just enough. Her question was disguised as concern. I answered calm truth. In our house, fights weren't loud. They were whispered at dawn when someone thought you were asleep. The winners rewrote the rules. That's not how we do things in this family. As though tradition was a shield, not a trap. I leaned back then, decided quietly, this ends with me. That night Dad came into the kitchen. He poured coffee for us both. "Greer's always been strong-willed," he said, quietly. "She's not strong," I answered. "She just believes she won't ever be held to account." He didn't argue. He didn't smile. He nodded once. And left. For the first time I saw he knew. He'd watched. And walked away. I sipped the coffee. Bitter. Needed. When I locked myself in the study afterward, I opened my notebook and wrote, "Trust is built on consistency. No more exceptions." I marked the dates: December 3rd contract change, January 12th loan rollover, March 8th fund approval without my consent. I spelled it out. My phone was dark on the desk. Behind it, the jewelry box glinted under the lamp. The house was silent. I felt its gaze, watching, anticipating. I whispered to myself, if silence was their weapon, maybe truth will be mine. I woke before the house. Not by alarm, not by noise. Just a quiet pull from something inside that refused to let me sleep. My hand reached for the coffee mug I'd poured an hour earlier. Cold. Still full. I didn't care. The kitchen was flooded with soft sunlight, and the jewelry box sat on the edge of the table, untouched, unopened since the gala. It caught the morning light like a question I still didn't want to answer. I kept replaying the tribute video, the cut credits, the way Greer smiled through the lie. Everyone clapped. No one looked at me. For a second, I thought, maybe I'm being dramatic. Maybe this is what family does. Cover things up. Smooth things over. Smile tight and move on. But then I heard her voice again in my head, that low, syrupy tone she uses when she's hiding a knife. "It's just business, Tam." No, it wasn't. It never was. Because if it was just one mistake, I'd forgive it. But this wasn't one. This was rehearsed. Coordinated. Polished like silver you only pull out when company comes over. Late morning, I was still in my robe when Greer knocked on the door. She held her scarf up like it had somehow walked out of the gala and curled up under my couch. Her tone was breezy. Her eyes weren't. She looked around like she was taking inventory. "You looked a little tense last night," she said, pretending concern. "Everything okay?" I didn't flinch. Things are starting to make sense. She paused, then smirked, like she knew the game we were playing. "You've always been a little sensitive." "Sensitive people remember things better," I said. "Like who edited tribute reels. And who signs off on media cuts." She waved a hand. "Oh, the media team made the call." Liar. Greer only smirks when she thinks you won't say what you really feel. She feeds off restraint. But that morning, I wasn't playing defense. She left 10 minutes later. I didn't walk her out. That afternoon, I dug through an old keepsake box I hadn't touched in years. Letters, photos, clippings. One envelope stood out, Mom's handwriting. 5 years ago. I unfolded the note. She thanked me for organizing the cancer fundraiser gala. Said, "You always carry more weight than anyone notices." I read it 3 times. Not out of disbelief, but because part of me forgot she'd ever seen me at all. I slipped that letter into my planner beside a fresh checklist I'd started, rewriting the record. That night, I backed up everything: emails, contracts, screenshots. Every quiet receipt. I labeled it clearly, truth. Stored it on a hard drive and locked it in the fireproof box in my closet. Then I called Jordan, my lawyer friend, and asked, "What does it take to secure planning rights on a nonprofit board?" I asked about trust fund access. About legal standing. About things I should have asked a decade ago. "You finally ready?" she said. "I'm past ready," I told her. "I'm just being quiet first." As dusk fell, the phone rang again. I nearly didn't answer. But the caller ID said Whitmore Jewelers. A woman's voice, soft but uneasy. "Hi, Ms. Falconer. I'm calling because someone attempted to change the pickup name on your recent purchase. They said it was a mistake. That their sister used the wrong card." My chest didn't tighten. It burned. Did they give a name? Greer Winterbourne. I closed my eyes. Of course. "I'll be picking it up myself," I said. "Please make sure nothing is changed." She apologized again. I thanked her and hung up. I sat there a long time, watching the box. She wasn't just erasing me. She was trying to replace me. That was the part one hadn't said out loud before. Later, I stepped outside. The breeze was cooler now. Sharp enough to wake something in me that had been asleep for years. All those years of silence, I told myself I was keeping peace. But peace for who? I sat down at the patio table with a blank notepad and wrote a new list. Not a list of what they'd done, but what I wouldn't allow again. My own rules. At the top I wrote, "Next time they try to erase me, I'll hand them a pen with ink that doesn't fade." Late into the night, the house settled into its usual hush, the kind that felt safe but also carried the weight of everything left unsaid. I sat in the study, the glow of the computer screen the only light in the room. A folder lay open, Family Gala Documents 2018 present. My fingers hovered over the mouse. My mind remembered how I stayed behind after every event, filing reports, balancing ledgers, never a thank you, never a nod. A new email notification blinked. From Jovita Kendricks, subject line preliminary findings. My pulse sped. I knew what it meant before I clicked. She'd found irregularities. The minutes of the gala committee contained missing sections. The trust fund records didn't reconcile. I leaned forward. In silence I said to myself, they built their empire on my silence. Tonight I collected receipts. Tonight I found the truth in plain sight. I found the video file in a hidden folder, labeled alternate_edit_final_final. I opened it. There, credits with my name, then black screen. The version I saw at the gala? My name gone. My segment erased. That punch to my gut echoed louder than any shouting match I ever lost. This was no mistake. This was a rewrite. Screenshot. Metadata. I sent the files to Jovita. Subject, we need to talk. Shame turned into matchstick fire. If they'll rewrite my story without telling me, I'll publish it myself. I switched tabs to my financial records. Transaction from Whitmore Jewelers. 2 billing addresses, mine, then 3 hours later, Winterbourne Family Care of Greer. I phoned the bank. They traced an IP login from Greer's corporate office. Think, if money is their language, they've been speaking it quietly for decades. Print invoice. Print bank log. Printer hums into the night. Folder labeled proof of intent. Confusion, gone. Clarity, arrived. I leaned back, clasped my hands. What's next? If I go public, I'll become the troublemaker. If I stay silent, I become the span of invisibility once more. I recalled a quote, "You don't rise by lifting your voice, you rise by showing your hand." Decision, I will act. Quietly. With evidence and plan, not emotion and tears. Email drafted, subject immediate action needed, family trust gala discrepancies. Attachments, metadata, invoice discrepancy, login logs. Message, we must act before the gala night when all eyes are off document control. Send. Heart thuds. This is no longer passive. The jewelry box sat next to the keyboard. I looked at the set. Safe now, not because of the box, but because I finally admitted I earned it. I logged off the computer. I rose, walked to the window overlooking Charleston Harbor. Moonlight shimmered on the water. I held the necklace box in one hand, printouts in the other. In my mind I said, they thought I'd remain invisible. They thought I'd accept the erasure. Tomorrow they'll see. I switched off the lamp. Quiet filled the hallway as I stepped away, resolve icy and clear. I walked into the boardroom early, lights overhead, polished mahogany table, framed gala photos lining the walls like silent witnesses. Greer sat at the head of the table, papers spread before her, eyes steady. She looked every bit the queen of this room. I nodded quietly as I entered. I knew most of those spreadsheets, I drafted them. Ready for next quarter, Tamsin? She asked, casual tone. Like I was still an assistant. My pulse ramped. I realized I had been in this room dozens of times and still counted as background noise. I took a deep breath. Are we discussing real numbers or the show for donors? I said. The board shifted. Some cleared their throats. Greer's smile flickered. The pattern, built on my labor, credited to her, stung me sharper than any argument I ever ignored. I grabbed the contract folder lying on the table and opened it. Cottage Haven Venue, signed under Greer's name. My idea. My months of research. Yet her name ruled it. I pointed that out. She shrugged. Your name was placeholder. I finalized it. I refused to sit. That's the pattern, placeholder until someone else takes credit. The partner next to me, someone who once worked under me, looked away. Dad, chairman, gasped quietly. Greer's composure cracked. In that crack, I saw the truth. The House of Mirrors had its first fissure. That evening I reached the donor dinner wearing the jewelry set. Bright lights, cameras, hush of high-end conversation. I passed the chart, I was placed behind the catering door at the patron table, invisible. I heard a guest whisper, "Isn't she the one who organized everything?" Greer caught my eye, gave me a sorry nod, and stayed in the spotlight. I didn't move. Inside I felt stone solid. They switched my seat before I even sat. All the power plays in one graphic moment. Later I slipped into the powder room and found Greer adjusting her dress in front of the mirror. "Hope you're not upset, little sister," she said. "I'm not the little sister anymore," I answered. Her laugh was soft. She walked away. I looked at the reflection, jewelry glinting, calm face, but I wasn't the same woman who entered this room. The victim in the mirror had gone. In her place stood someone alert. Back in the ballroom, I triggered the slideshow. Under the donor recognition segment, I slipped in the metadata screenshot, my name credited, then black screen. Numbers. A banking log. The image popped up. Gasps filled the room. Greer's jaw tightened. I watched. Voice in my head, they taught me to stay quiet. Then I learned to be visible. For once, their mirrors cracked. Outside later, Charleston Harbor breeze felt like truth against my skin. I dialed Jovita. "I want full recognition, or I'll pull the registration for next year's gala," I said. I looked back at the ballroom through the window, crowds milling, cameras flashing. My internal voice, I didn't come here to reclaim a seat. I came to change the table. I stepped away. The streak of my resolve cut through the night like a pre-dawn promise. The sun was just dipping behind Charleston Harbor as I stepped out of the car. The twilight kissed the water with gold, and the air smelled faintly of salt and jasmine. Guests milled around the entrance to the gala's main event, tuxedos and gowns sweeping through the courtyard like waves. Camera shutters clicked non-stop. I adjusted the clasp on the necklace, yes, that necklace, and walked toward the lights with purpose. The $300,000 set shimmered beneath the venue's chandeliers, and people noticed. Their eyes followed the gems, but also me. Not just whispers about the diamonds, but the woman wearing them. Greer led the procession to the stage with her usual grace, but there was an edge in her posture. I caught it. "Your silence will not protect you." That line echoed in my head like a bell ringing down from somewhere holy and old. The program began. Greer stood at the podium, poised, polished, proud. She introduced the tribute video like it was any other year. Smooth. Perfect. Polite. I took my seat, fingers grazing the outline of the remote tucked discreetly in my clutch. My heart didn't race, it waited. I wasn't a footnote anymore. The lights dimmed. The video started. A familiar montage of past galas, smiles, handshakes, champagne toasts. Then, there it was. The alternate clip. Just for a flash, too short to stop, too loud to ignore. My name. Credited clearly. Then a flicker of numbers, banking logs, invoice screenshots, time-stamped records. Only seconds. But that's all it took. Gasps moved through the crowd like a gust of wind. Heads turned, murmurs spread. I rose slowly, took the mic near my seat, voice calm. For years I accepted the footnote. Tonight I raised the headline. The screen glitched, froze, then went black. I didn't flinch. I let the silence settle. This wasn't revenge. It was truth, finally breathing on its own. "Did you put that together?" a donor beside me whispered. I nodded once. At the podium, Greer stood frozen. Her voice cracked as she muttered something about a technical error. I walked toward the stage, the jewelry catching every bit of light. I took the second mic and looked out. The legacy we celebrate tonight is about integrity. Not illusion. The hush thickened. A few claps began, tentative, unsure, then stopped. In that moment, I felt something new. Not just seen, understood. I owned the air around me. Dad sat at the head table, Harlan. Stone-faced. Greer leaned into him, whispering hard. He didn't answer her. He looked at me. Just looked. I didn't need his words. His silence, tonight, wasn't dismissal. It was allowance. Maybe even apology. Later, backstage, Greer cornered me. Her tone sharp but quiet. You'll regret this. I met her eyes. I regret nothing. And I didn't. The fear that once lived in my spine had left, replaced by a quiet certainty. After the event, I met Jovita in a side lounge. The buzz of the gala behind us, distant like waves. We went over the next steps. Formal credit. A public seat at the table. Internal audits. And then my decision, a new nonprofit. In Mom's name. Built on truth. Greer's allies began to drift. They saw the tide turning. I didn't need to push them. The silence around her did the job. I walked out onto the harbor promenade. Lanterns along the walkway glowed warm. I held the necklace for a moment, then let it rest against my collarbone. They tried to control the story, I thought. I just rewrote the first chapter. Just as I reached my car, my phone buzzed. A text from a friend. Check this out. A photo, me backstage, in full jewelry, chin slightly lifted, light bouncing off the diamonds. Captioned, Quiet donor stirs storm at Winterbourne Gala. The wind off the harbor hit sharper now. Not cold. Just real. The real battle had just gone public. The harbor was quiet that morning. A cool breeze drifted over the water as I sat at the end of the pier, coffee in hand, feet tucked beneath me. No cameras, no whispers, just the distant sound of a fishing boat and the seagulls circling above. Since the gala, everything had shifted. That photo, backstage, with the jewelry, had gone viral faster than I ever expected. I heard from people I hadn't spoken to in decades. College friends. Journalists. Strangers who said they'd been watching the story unfold. Funny how being seen changes so little and everything all at once. For the first time in a long time, I didn't feel like a ghost at my own table. I thought about Maya Angelou's words, there is no greater agony than bearing an untold story inside you. She was right. But telling it didn't leave a void. It gave me space to finally hear myself. Peace wasn't in the headlines. It was here, with the wind, the dock creaking under my weight, and the quiet truth that I'd made it through. Dad sent one email. Just one. It read, I wish I'd done more. And that was it. I didn't reply. I didn't need to. It wasn't closure, but it was enough. Greer had resigned from the board. No dramatic announcement. Just a line in the weekly minutes, stepping away indefinitely. Her silence, after everything, felt louder than any speech she'd ever given. I didn't reach out to her either. Some stories end without punctuation. That week, I had dinner with Aunt Noreen. We hadn't sat down like that in years, just the two of us, no obligations, no performances. Over grilled fish and sweet tea, she said, your mother would be proud, Tamsin. I nodded. And for the first time in this whole storm, I let the tears fall. Not out of pain. But because healing, when it comes soft. Later that night, I opened my mother's old jewelry chest. The heavy set that caused so much attention, I placed it inside. Gently. Not as a prize, but as a time capsule. It had done its job. Now it could rest. The Marion Foundation launched the next month. Small space. Local bookstore. Mismatched chairs and a folding table of snacks. No champagne. No spotlight. But the room was full of women who had fought their own battles, who wanted something better, not louder. I told them what I knew. Sometimes the most powerful stories are the ones they tried to bury. And sometimes, telling it is the beginning of everything new. The donors didn't come for prestige. They came because they'd lived something real. This wasn't revenge. This was rebuilding. One afternoon, a journalist called. Local segment. The woman who changed the gala game. That's what they titled it. Then came the forum invitation. A professor out of Atlanta asked me to speak on women's leadership. During the Q&A, a young woman stood and asked, "Would you do it all again?" I smiled, thinking of all the versions of me who had stayed quiet. Yes, I said. But I'd buy the jewelry sooner. A week later, I received a nomination to join a national nonprofit watchdog committee. Not some gala side chair. This was real oversight work. From footnote to headline. To steward. And then, quietly, one morning, an envelope. No return address. Inside, a handwritten letter. You changed more than a gala. You changed me. I hated you for it. Now I envy you for it. I'm starting over. No signature. But I knew. Greer. I read it twice. Didn't know whether to laugh or cry. People don't always get a chapter 9. Some stop at 5. Others stay stuck in 2 forever. I folded the letter and placed it in the back of my journal. Not erased. Just set aside. Last week, I walked down to the harbor again. Same place. Same view. The sunset was doing its thing, painting the sky in soft gold and burnt orange. This time, I wasn't wearing anything extravagant. Just a simple locket. My mother's. I touched it gently. You don't have to shine for everyone, I thought. Sometimes it's enough to light your own way. The harbor was quiet that morning. A cool breeze drifted over the water as I sat at the end of the pier, coffee in hand, feet tucked beneath me. No cameras, no whispers, just the distant sound of a fishing boat and the seagulls circling above. Since the gala, everything had shifted. That photo, backstage, with the jewelry, had gone viral faster than I ever expected. I heard from people I hadn't spoken to in decades. College friends. Journalists. Strangers who said they'd been watching the story unfold. Funny how being seen changes so little and everything all at once. For the first time in a long time, I didn't feel like a ghost at my own table. I thought about Maya Angelou's words, "There is no greater agony than bearing an untold story inside you." She was right. But telling it didn't leave a void. It gave me space to finally hear myself. Peace wasn't in the headlines. It was here, with the wind, the dock creaking under my weight, and the quiet truth that I'd made it through. Dad sent one email. Just one. It read, "I wish I'd done more." And that was it. I didn't reply. I didn't need to. It wasn't closure, but it was enough. Greer had resigned from the board. No dramatic announcement. Just a line in the weekly minutes, stepping away indefinitely. Her silence, after everything, felt louder than any speech she'd ever given. I didn't reach out to her either. Some stories end without punctuation. That week, I had dinner with Aunt Noreen. We hadn't sat down like that in years, just the two of us, no obligations, no performances. Over grilled fish and sweet tea, she said, Your mother would be proud, Tamsin." I nodded. And for the first time in this whole storm, I let the tears fall. Not out of pain, but because healing, when it comes soft. Later that night, I opened my mother's old jewelry chest. The heavy set that caused so much attention, I placed it inside. Gently. Not as a prize, but as a time capsule. It had done its job. Now it could rest. The Marion Foundation launched the next month. Small space. Local bookstore. Mismatched chairs and a folding table of snacks. No champagne. No spotlight. But the room was full of women who had fought their own battles, who wanted something better, not louder. I told them what I knew. Sometimes the most powerful stories are the ones they tried to bury. And sometimes, telling it is the beginning of everything new. The donors didn't come for prestige. They came because they'd lived something real. This wasn't revenge. This was rebuilding. One afternoon, a journalist called. Local segment. The Woman Who Changed the Gala Game. That's what they titled it. Then came the forum invitation. A professor out of Atlanta asked me to speak on women's leadership. During the Q&A, a young woman stood and asked, "Would you do it all again?" I smiled, thinking of all the versions of me who had stayed quiet. "Yes," I said. "But I'd buy the jewelry sooner." A week later, I received a nomination to join a national nonprofit watchdog committee. Not some gala side chair. This was real oversight work. From footnote to headline. To steward. And then, quietly, one morning, an envelope. No return address. Inside, a handwritten letter. "You changed more than a gala. You changed me. I hated you for it. Now I envy you for it. I'm starting over." No signature. But I knew. Greer. I read it twice. Didn't know whether to laugh or cry. People don't always get a chapter 9. Some stop at 5. Others stay stuck in 2 forever. I folded the letter and placed it in the back of my journal. Not erased. Just set aside. Last week, I walked down to the harbor again. Same place. Same view. The sunset was doing its thing, painting the sky in soft gold and burnt orange. This time, I wasn't wearing anything extravagant. Just a simple locket. My mother's. I touched it gently. You don't have to shine for everyone, I thought. Sometimes it's enough to light your own way.